right, well, welcome everybody. There are still some seats in the front if you haven't had a chance to grab one yet and would like a place to sit. Don't be shy. Feel free to fill in. We're a friendly group. Welcome to the Stanley Museum of Art's Jeanne and Richard Levitt Lecture. Today we're excited to have Jiha Moon with us. I'm Kimberly Datchik, the Curator of Learning and Engagement here at the Stanley. On the screen, you'll see the University of Iowa Land Acknowledgement. It recognizes that the land that we're on used to belong to many different indigenous tribes. As settlers arrived, they took land away from the indigenous people. We are working to make up for the wrongs done in the past in the ways we reach out to indigenous communities and work with them. These communities have a long, rich history, and they continue to thrive in Iowa today. Please join me for a moment of reflection as I read the University of Iowa Acknowledgement of Land and Sovereignty. The University of Iowa is located on the homelands of the Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, Chippewa, Bohoji, Iowa, Chickapew, Kickapoo, Ometmeneowak, Menominee, Miamia, Miami, Natuchi, Missouri, Omaha, Omaha, Wazaji, Osage, Jiware, Oto, Ottawa, Ottawa, Ponca, Ponca, Potawatomi, Neshnabay, Potawatomi, Meskwaki, Nemahaki, Sakawaki, Sac and Fox, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, Sioux, Sanish, Nubaka, Nuweta, 3 affiliated tribes, and Ho-Chunk Winnebago nations. The following tribal nations, Omaha, Omaha Tribe of Nebraska and Iowa, Ponca, Ponca Tribe of Nebraska, Meskwaki, Sac and Fox of the Mississippi in Iowa, and Ho-Chunk, Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska nations continue to thrive in the state of Iowa, and we continue to acknowledge them. As an academic institution, it is our responsibility to acknowledge their sovereignty and the traditional territories of these tribal nations, and the treaties that were used to remove these tribal nations, and the histories of dispossession that have allowed for the growth of this institution since 1847. Consistent with the university's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, understanding the historical and current experiences of Native peoples will help inform the work we do collectively as a university to engage in building relationships through academic scholarship, collaborative partnerships, community service, enrollment and retention efforts, acknowledging our past, our present, and future Native nations. The Stanley Museum of Art is excited to welcome Jiha Moon this evening. Moon received her MFA from the University of Iowa, so it's special for us to have her here tonight. She completed the mural you see on your left, One Another, in July as the 3rd installment of the Threshold series. The series highlights Iowa-affiliated artists working in a range of media and celebrates the state's rich artistic legacies. The mural was created with the assistance of Andy Moon Wilson, Oliver Moon Wilson, Isabel Flores, Hannah Keats, Sean Malonga, and Carter White, and will remain on view until summer 2026. Additionally, Moon's Haiti Tiger Rose is also in the galleries. Moon's work across media explores fluid identities and global movements of people and their cultures. Taking cues from a wide range of sources, including the history of Eastern and Western art, popular culture, Korean temple paintings and folk art, internet emoticons and icons, fruit stickers, and product labels from across the world, she often teases and changes these lexicons so they are hard to identify yet remain familiar. Moon lives and works in Tallahassee, Florida, where she is an assistant professor of art at Florida State University. Her works have been acquired by the High Museum of Art, Smithsonian Institute, Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Gardens, the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, and of course the Stanley Museum of Art, among others. She was the recipient of the prestigious Joan Mitchell Foundation's 2011 award and a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2023. This fall, Moon has a solo exhibition opening at Derek Keller Gallery in New York, is co-curating a group show entitled Emotion at Laney Contemporary in Savannah, Georgia, and will be participating in Untitled at Laney Contemporary. We're so pleased that she worked us into her schedule this fall, and she's here tonight. Please join me in welcoming Jiha Moon.
Hello, everyone. I just saw my professor just walk in, and he looks exactly same. And it's such a privilege for me to be here and have an opportunity to speak with you all and talk about my work about 45 minutes. And thank you so much for joining tonight. I have to appreciate University of Iowa and museum who brought me to this moment and make this thing happen. Thank you so much. I have to say that this experience for me to do a mural at the museum for about less than 2 weeks with my family and University of Iowa student and 2 students from FSU and the museum staff was a life-changing experience for me. More than art. I think art is part of the life, and for me, it's all about it, and I can't wait to share with you all. So thank you for having me. And I'm gonna start by showing you some of the work titles for my exhibition that I have for last about little over 10 years. And without images, you see the art titles. For short titles, you can kind of imagine what I'm thinking about, and I thought it was kind of fun to share. And I really want you to kind of secretly read it in your mind and then kind of picture this. And then I have to say that this screenshot is very inspirational for me when I think about my practice in general. This is a screenshot from the Alice in Wonderland animation, not the original novel, written by British author. That I have discovered after I, even graduate from college. But the animation is the first, time that I discovered Disney and then the storytelling part. So from this screenshot, I came up with 3 big ideas that is ongoing in my studio practice, and I often find the viewers ask questions about that. So I boiled down into 3 questions that are important in my practice. Oops, of course I do something wrong. Okay, so the original versus adaptation. We always think about what's original, right? And we always want to be the original. But for me, what do you guys think? The British author Lewis Carroll's original version of novel is original to me? No, the Disney animation was original to me. That's how I was introduced. My parents bought a book about Alice in Wonderland, and that was the picture of the illustration of the animation. That's how I was introduced about the storytelling part. And I was really excited about it. And that's how I knew it. And it wasn't until I was going to college after I graduated, and I have to confess, I even didn't read the whole thing. I read the most interesting part only, which was a tea party. Right? The tea party, there's a sense of chaos, right? And Alice was lost, and she's looking for a tea party, and then the Cheshire Cat comes and appear and disappear, almost helping, but not really helping, almost teasing in a way, right? And I often think about that a lot, and how that tea party represents a lot of different things in our lives. So going back to the first point, original versus adaptation, for my original, that's the animation. And the second part is focusing on the present tense. My work is a lot about the present, what is going on right now. I know what had happened before, but I cannot predict what's gonna happen tomorrow. And what I know is the presence. The presence doesn't look very good. We have ongoing war, we have post-pandemic situation, we have climate changes, a lot of issues we're facing. It's really depressing. But I kind of see that as like a tea party, right? And it's, I would say, almost like a purgatory. Something to look for. But I much rather be in a purgatory situation than going to heaven. And everybody's so happy in heaven. Do they need to make painting? I don't know. Do they need to make painting? Ceramic? Anything artistic? I am not sure. But I much rather focus on the presence, which looks like a purgatory to me. So I consider my painting chaotic landscapes or culture maps. That's like my elevator speech. And the sculpture is my hybrid portrait. So if I say it that way, it's a lot easier for you to understand, right? So the last part is iconography that people ask me a lot. Like, how do you come with iconographies that looks familiar? Are you copying someone's work? Did you ask about the copyright and blah, 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 right? I consider my iconography is slightly changed, always twisted. I don't give you the way you look for. I reference enough to draw your attention, but I always switch and twist and change things. So those are sort of representing religion, nature, belief system, whatever you call. I call Cheshire Cat like my mother. My mother, who I love so much, but I only speak sometimes. I cannot speak all the time. I cannot talk to her all the time because she will drive me crazy. So you have that experience, right? So that kind of turning into iconography. So when you look at my painting or ceramic, you'll see something recognized, and that become point of departure, and that helps you to guide to go to the different area. I'm not sure if I can give you a good map. The map is confusing, so my map is art, so you can't really follow the direction of like what I'm guiding. You have to cultivate your own direction, looking at my artwork that way. So from now, here I'm going to show you some of my work. I think it's a highlight of my work about 12 years. I made a little preview because I brought over 100 slides. I'm crazy. So while you're looking at my work, you'll hear me reading my artist statement and then sort of digest what's going on. The simple question, where are you from, can be tricky to answer these days. Identity as a concept linked to geography, citizenship, ethnicity, and race tend to morph, and these shifts strongly affect my work imagery as Asian American living in the Deep South. My art features cultural landscapes that look simultaneously familiar and strange. I am a cartographer of cultures and an icon maker of my fictional world. I take cues from both Eastern and Western images, folklore, art histories, and popular cultures. I twist and hybridize these to tell new stories of different global lives. I incorporate my source of inspiration to make my own stories in my work. Korean folk art, color from Korean temple paintings, Mexican masks and milagros, fortune cookies from American Chinese restaurant, Blue Willow, the ever misunderstanding of Asian love story done by British design company, pop artist Roy Lichtenstein's brush strokes of blonde women, but at the same time, color yellow as Asian representation of glorious visibility. Emoticons, smiley faces as 21st century's the most minimalistic portrait, nail decals, banana, the symbol as second generation of Asian American, and even southern face jugs and peaches, the state fruit of Georgia, where I have lived for past 15 years. I teach and change these lexicons so that they are familiar yet harder to identify in this new context. Okay, so I organized some of the slides based on the category of different genre. So my painting is ongoing practice. Fan paintings kind of done. Blanket painting still going on in collaboration with my grandmother. I will talk about it in later. Hanji mounted on canvas and painting with ceramic elements are the two recent categories. So this is one of the example of individual fan paintings. So the shape came from Asian artifact fan. So I'm looking at a lot of Asian references and then realized they don't always use rectangular or square format and use a shape of objects. And that has a lot of impact on me. And in the beginning, I was debating, is this a little bit gimmicky? Is it okay to use it? But I realized I'm the only one give that permission to myself. So I started using it. So when I did individual fan shape as a format, I juxtaposed two different landscapes, one and then one from behind it. So they interact with each other. And this one, called The Beautiful Country, directly translated as Mi국, which means America. And I was thinking more about 4th of July, Independence Day, right? We celebrate. I became a citizen just this year. All this year, I've been hesitating and negotiating and things what's more important not in my life, and finally decided I need to freaking vote. So I became a citizen. So yeah, this, it's exciting because Mi국 basically means beautiful country, right? And then celebration of 4th of July, the first thing comes in my mind is fireworks. So I kind of switched with the firework with chrysanthemum and fortune cookies, the languages that people don't see as American, and I kind of want to talk about, we have to see what the strength of America brought. And as I cultivate more of the different format, I started juxtaposing individual story as a big story. Almost like, you're on social media, you're chatting with your sister, and you're watching the CNN news. And you think that your individual story doesn't matter, but actually it matters. And now you think about a lot of things happening and talking about in your life, you can kind of see it on social media and elsewhere. Like, once you talk about something else, it'll pop up in your commercials, or like your algorithm bring a lot of things up. And I was thinking a lot about that, and I wanted my individual story to be more important in my work, at least, in my studio when I'm making a work. How do I negotiate that, like single story versus multiple stories? So as a format, it challenges, as I studied certain shapes and color as a local area, I embedded more of fan shapes. It bleeds through and then expanded, and then I have to deal with that format as well. So each time I build up little more fan shapes, and I have to deal with the new, formal challenges. So that's a lot about these multiple fan paintings. And often I really don't know where my story is telling me, and I just kind of let that happen, and process takes you to the next level. And I created a lot of multiple fan painting series, and this painting I was really excited about because I was using tie-dye color as a important format, and recognizing pattern as iconography. And I remember my husband started irritating me, saying that, tie-dye pattern is annoying. I was making tie-dye shirts and putting on my son, and he's like, don't do that, you don't even know what it means. And then I was like, what does it mean? I love it, I'm gonna Google and look for it. And then I find out anti-war hippie cultures, I love it more. So I told him I'm sorry, I love it more. And this color pattern, it really reminds me of Korean traditional rainbow stripes. And if you remove the rainbow stripes, this is exactly what tie-dye does. And so there's a culture intersect within these two different culture. And something, of course, is really good and something happening as a side effect. That's how usually things are, and we understand that. And now if you look at the tie-dye, it became touristic culture. If you go to Miami, if you go to Tampa, you see all this tie-dye, it become a touristic thing. So one thing survive as original meaning, but it evolves and changes in time, which becomes super powerful for me. So I start using that a lot. And from these fan paintings, I start thinking about color as a culture represent elements. So color yellow is the color of emoji, color of Simpson. By the way, Simpson's yellow, right? but Simpson's American. It must be Asian. That's what my imagination tells me. So I started this painting and thinking about lots of different like components and storytelling, cultural influences. Also formally things happening within the process. I have to kind of digest all at the same time, and then sort of let things happen, let it cook itself. And then the blanket painting, the conversation between me and my grandmother, who is still very healthy, knock on wood, and she's an amazing lady, and I often think about where my artistic influence come from. I think about art history, I think about all these wonderful artists who lived before us, and Eastern and Western, all of it. I just think it's my grandmother. So grandma, you won over everybody. She is a wacky lady. She's resilient. She's awesome. She's always working. She has a million projects. She yells at my mother all the time, and I love her to death. She collaborated with me, and then she did outside a border of quilts, which resemble to Korean blankets. So that's actually like hands-on patchwork that looks almost like a framework. Within, everything else is painted with acrylic medium on Hanji, Korean Hanji paper. Do you guys read it? So it's alphabet acting like Korean letters, but they're alphabet. So all of a sudden you feel like, oh my God, when have I learned Korean? You have not. It's just written in English. Bless your heart. I love the duality of that expression because it's just like a coin's both sides. So I learned that expression when I moved to the South in Atlanta. People were saying, oh, sweetheart, bless your heart. And I thought that was really sweet. But then later on, I learned that means you're stupid. And I love it. And I heard people using that both ways. So somebody using that expression very sincerely, and somebody who's using that expression very sarcastically. So I believe it. And I feel like wholeheartedly that's American way. Sarcasm never happened when I lived in Korea. And we too are influenced by like Chinese Confucianism, which is very lecturish, which I respect, but don't like, right? But sarcasm, American sarcasm, oh man, oh boy, it took so long for me to learn. And the moment when I start giggle with other Americans, then I knew that my English got better. So this piece, again, kind of play with the duality. And there's a painted area, there's patchwork area, there's sewn area, there's drawn area, there's also the acrylic paint kind of soaked into paper underneath it, and there's an area that's like impasto, sort of like thick physicality of paint sitting on it. There's a lot of complexity, and I kind of play with that formal issues that speak with my contents as well, which is really, really important for my studio practice. And then later on, I realized I used a maximalistic idea almost too long, and I needed to have a wake-up call. I needed to kind of like whack myself and, Jiha, you need to move on. You need to not to be too comfortable of what you're doing well. And I wanted to sort of minimize myself, and then this is how I came about. And I wanted to use color yellow as a representation of Asian community. So as you see, my influence of like pop artists or Wittgenstein, that can be the starting point, but that's not always it, because I don't actually reference a certain things or shapes or a specific things. I just understand the art historical importance, but there's brush stroke that can be done within 10 seconds, right? So something can be spontaneously happening all at once, but then there's a lot of slow down, labor-intensive part of it, which express about your studio practice as labor-intensiveness. And here, I sort of limit myself not to use so many colors, but sort of utilize that. And here, I was watching women's rights movement in TV against ex-president, I wouldn't say who. 2019, I was inspired to use bright magenta because I couldn't be in DC. I wanted to join that, but I just couldn't. So like, what can I do? Like, you know, as an artist, many of artists like understand is like very solitude practice you and your work in your studio. And society asks you, like, you know, how can you contribute? What can you do? And obviously, I'm not a performance artist. I like making stuff. I like objects. I like my colors. I want to do things myself. Apparently, believe it or not, I did the 16 personality test. I'm an introvert. So I guess I'm a trained introvert because I have to teach my class, right? And I have to do the lecture like that. I have to engage with people. But there must be something I can do as individual soloist artist in my studio. And I wanted to use color magenta to reflect that time period. I less care about my piece become timeless and original and what do you call, like something that cannot change in time. I do not actually care about that so much. I like to reflect the time that I live, the place that I live. I want to incorporate, I want to be part of that. I often think about that a lot as I get older because what it means when my loved one, who I live with so long, we cultivate everything together, what it means when they leave. It's time for me to leave too, right? So I want to reflect the time that I live in. What was popular? Twitter was popular, Instagram was popular, TikTok, I can't really engage with TikTok, but I understand, I watch it, you know. I cherish my conversation with my 16-year-old son. Those things reflect my time and the time that I live as a human being on earth. So I care about that a lot, and I want my work to do the same thing. So when the larger scale work is doing that, my smaller work is me sort of goofing around with iconography a little more. I have a desire of paint better, and I still cannot give up entirely figurative elements, and I really love. So with the smaller scale work, I do a lot more iconography-based one, where larger works capture the bigger feeling or tendency of what's going on. So when I make this work, it's a very smaller work, and I had to go to Korea because it was the beginning of pandemic, and my dad was very struggling, and not because of COVID, he had a cancer, and my mom promised she's gonna call me no matter what happened. This time she called me, so I had to flew Korea, and then I realized my hometown was epicenter, and there was like a 400 people COVID every day, and it was just crazy, whereas the US hasn't noticed yet. So I left this painting in my studio and went back to Korea, and then I came home because my mom was like, we need to focus on your dad, you need to go back, no one can take care of you. So you need to go back home because the airport is still open. So I was crying and coming back home, leaving my dad, and promised my dad that I'm gonna come back and bring Ollie and Andy, which I couldn't keep it. But then after I arrived at my studio and then look at this painting, again, entire thing changed. So what had happened? I was using the animal trophy, which was part of prop in my still life. So the dead animal skin is heavily camouflage embedded here. I don't know if you notice it. It just become symbol of life and death. And it was crazy. And I just realized everything has a reason, but it comes its own term for me to understand and what life means to us, right? And some things you can't really explain with your words, and it's okay if you don't, right? And you just make a conversation with you for a long time. Okay, so we're entering to my more recent practice. I start making like those iconography that I like to paint into ceramic pieces and then start gluing on my work. And I started out smaller scale first, And because I'm also a very timid person, I want to try out, right? I like to try out and to see if this is okay. And I have to prove myself. And then now I'm making these pieces a lot bigger, like 40 by 40, like a little bit larger pieces. Those ceramic pieces of banana peels are all ceramic and then attached on the panel surfaces. And then I was, I guess, like into the night scene. Like, night is kind of like scary but safe area where the wild animal could come out, right? The predators are kind of quiet and not, like, you can like goof around it safely. So I was into nocturnal kind of scene. So I've been using a lot of this night scene or neon lights or things like that, sort of I can represent like, Asian community, I guess. Like it's kind of different. Like Asian communities, their survival tactic is like just being quiet. And I want to sort of change that scenario a little bit. So, okay, yellow is like really bright color, It could be obnoxious and loud, So Asians call the yellow, but why are we so quiet all the time? So in a way that I use that as a symbolic gesture. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a different work. For once in a while, I'm get super excited about the objects, like what paintings have that objects don't have, right? For me, I feel like paintings are a bad boyfriend, right? So they're on the beautiful museum wall, white space, like proudly up there. You're not supposed to touch it, right? Stay away, right? And they are such an old form. Right? They're so old and still surviving. I love painting and I consider myself as a painter, but I feel like I need to make something that I cannot translate in a painting. So I had this like itch to make objects. So Norige and Tal is some of that. So this is a Shin Yun-bok, a Korean painter from 19th century, paints beautiful ladies. If you see, she's touching something under her jacket. That's the ornaments. We call it norige. Korean people call it norige. It's like basically women's accessory. Okay, I didn't make that. I got that screenshot from online. So it's an actual object. So the middle part is normally like jade, precious gemstone. And the top part is hand, what do you call? Hand knotted elements. And the bottom is a tassel. It's mainly made with silk. And it's about like 10 to 15 inches. So when I got married, my mom gave me one. And then she emphasized how expensive that is, million times. So make sure I am not going to lose it. Don't worry about it. But if you go to Chinatown, you find something like this, very similar. Some people put it as a like ornament, like the house decoration. Like Chinese have it, Japanese have it. It's very similar culture, East Asian culture. So this is seen from Korean K-drama, historic drama. You see the front ladies wearing the norige, big one with jade, right? And the servants behind, they have the fabric ones. So it kind of showcases the social status as well. So if you're queen, you have the jade one. If you're servant, you have the fabric one, right? So how awful it is, but it's also interesting. And I wanted to make a norige based on that. And this is old Korean idol. They retire now, but look at their hair, like green hair. And they really love hip hop, obviously. Anybody know them? I had a lecture upstate New York somewhere. No one knew, or at least they didn't want to talk about it. Come on, this is BTS. It's a huge K-pop boy group. Look at their hairs. They're like, wear contact lenses, like it's blue, weird, right? Because Koreans don't have blue eyes. So blue is a very unnatural color for me. Because my husband has gray blue eyes too, right? Very foreign to me. But here, anime cosplay, nobody is born with blue hair. Anybody know? Anybody has blue hair? No. So I'm like super excited about this new generation and cultures because identity is not something you're born with. You're adding, you're shifting, and you're changing. It's a part of you. It's also your style, right? And I was so excited about that. And pony bees, the hairstyle from a certain culture, Marie Antoinette, like crazy hair, right? Hair is something. So I started making the norige pieces, the body parts, the precious gemstone, I replaced with ceramic work. In the top area, I use a synthetic hair, braided all the way super long, and then me and my assistant watching YouTube tutorial how to do this, and then looking at Korean books and how to make the hand knotted elements. And we tackle about 10 different knots, which was torturing. It was so hard, like becoming mathematician in a way. And then I cheated a lot. But then I also told my assistant, you have to figure this out because I have to make ceramic part, right? And then one of my assistants who quit after 1 year, she actually mastered all 10 different knots and she quit. It was that hard. And I felt bad. But I got to make a lot of different things. Every time I make norige pieces, I treat it like almost like brand new person who I see. You see someone who you never met, you encounter in grocery store or coffee shop, elsewhere, different generation, different country, different ethnicity, but you feel so like, oh my God, it's super awesome. I love her style. I love their style. I want to know more. And it's my desire to know. So I wanted to make a lot of them. And I did. I made about like 50 of them. So in a way, when you display together, like all of us together standing as a group, all of different of us, but we are in this together, right? So that was the vibe I wanted to cultivate. And then after that, of course, I was getting kind of sick of hand-knotted elements and synthetic hair, so I decided to move on to the mask making. So less synthetic hair, more of a mask, where that I can use mask as a canvas. I can draw and paint and glaze a lot. Okay, now I'm entering ceramic sculpture, which is my new baby, but still, not really new. If I start out as a ceramicist from the beginning, no one will call me, I'm an outsider. But it's interesting, I start out as a painter and I studied ceramic later on, but you see 2012. So I've been doing a decade now, so I'm not really new, right? But I still feel like it's an interesting dynamic between like different genre or in the art world, like there's still like a gatekeeping and division. And I get used to it because I moved here in US and I live in a different spaces. And so I feel like it's quite a challenge, like within even our community. I also like to be rebel a little secretly, right? So like quiet rebel. And I want to do my thing and giving people a hard time to define what I am, who I am. I think it's an artist's job to have a freedom to make whatever you want to make. And it's not your job to define yourself and your identity is like, oh, I'm only a painter, I'm only a ceramicist. Like, you know, I actually feel like you give that title to yourself. It took a long time for me to realize that because I'm a shy person. So I started making ceramic pieces, but then I realized I really like to paint and draw on the surface of ceramic. So that's my painter's approach. Right? I still like to draw and paint on the surface of ceramic using the different forms and like scale and dimensionality. So March Hare is one of my favorite characters from Alice in Wonderland, and I actually make like at least one a year. And then you see my band painting. For my painting, I stopped doing it, but it comes out in my ceramic work. So part of the good thing about ceramic work is a sculpture. So you see from this side is one painting, it says book, like, you know, bless in Korean. And on the other side it says different things. So YOLO, I was really hooked with that slang because it's Obama slang. And people say that a lot here, and it was really popular for a while, but then no one uses it anymore. And then it went to Korea, and YOLO was huge in Korea. People quitting job. It was weird, So I'm like, oh my God, it's just a different moment. So I really love how the certain thing has a certain time period, live its life, and then move on to different culture, different time period, and revive and survive and become something different. So quite jumping. Now, this is very recent work. I think I made this one this year, actually, this year. So same fan shape. And you know who that is? If you recognize, it's Keanu Reeves, my new idol. Keanu Reeves is quarter Chinese. It's an interesting life story. I just like him as a human being. If you ask me, so as a fan, what kind of movie you watched? I cannot name it. Maybe Speed and Matrix, about that. But I just love him as a human being and his storytelling part of it. And he did an interview. What happened when we die, Keanu? And this is what he said, if you can read it. I know that the ones who love us will miss us. And that was just really heartfelt, and I wanted to make a piece about that. So ceramic piece is really interesting. From view, very friendly. And then, of course, the peach, is like bridging between Eastern and Western cultures. But also, for me, it represents motherhood. When mother become really mother and using the part of organ as most dynamic situation to feed their child, that's where the interest of society declines, right? And you loses your value, and that's how society sees us. And it's just really nerve-wracking for me, and I wanted to sort of indicate that. So one iconography doesn't always say one thing, it says multiple things, and who knows? Later on, it'll add up more. But on the other side, it's vicious. So my son always you're a helicopter mom, but I am not helicopter mom. I'm very generous, but he hasn't had that experience yet. But I really love that dynamic of one side is very sweet, and you flip, there's vicious self is waiting for you. I love that ceramic, I can do that. So this shape, as you can see, the dumplings, and this is how my grandmother taught me how to make dumplings. But there's a lot of different ways of make dumplings, so I'm kind of learning that and utilizing that in my sculpture. So the tiger here is very friendly and referencing from Korean folk art, but I want all the powerful things like dragon, tiger, sort of represent the authority or power, a royal, whatever, it's very male dominant. I want to switch things and then tickle it and make it a little bit more friendly and sort of my version of, I guess, a soft sarcasm. And Milagros, I put my family's little portraits, things that you see as LOVE, that's definitely written in sort of looking like a Korean character, but it's in English. And the Hudgens Art Center, I was in a group show, and I utilized this as a very small setup of installation. You're not supposed to go sit down. It's just I didn't want to use a pedestal. But it's good for the installation setting, so try to convey more of, tea party type. But then the Hudgens Art Center director sent me this picture, and I was like, holy, this is so funny. And I wasn't mad. They were not supposed to sit down, but why not? It's they had a anime cosplay festival, and people came and sit down, and I took a picture. They took a picture, sent it to me, and I said, I'm gonna use that for my artist talk. And I did it for this little while. It was kind of fun, but then I realized individual pieces kind of disappear. As an installation, they see the tea party. This is my version of tea party. But I did it for a while, but then I kind of stopped. Okay, Korean temple paintings, very bombastic, colorful. It protects the architecture and from the birds to nest, and it prevents it, so they say it. And it's a very meditative process, even though they use very electric colors, to deal with all the hard edges and everything. And this is Atomi folk art from Mexico, but the color patterns very similar from Korean temple painting. And I was so excited to find out about them, and I was looking at them more. And this is my son's 1-year birthday. And look at all the colors. And I feel like the colors for middle class here in America and also Korea too, and elsewhere, it's free. Lots of people, it just give you free dopamine, right? We love colors. So I use color a lot, not just to make a happy moment, but we celebrate middle class, and it's really great. I think part of the reason I look at a lot of folk art is because of that. And do you know whose work that is? I asked question, but there's a caption right next to it. Rose O'Neal is an American illustrator, artist, activist who worked for women's vote right. Do you know about Rose O'Neal? She made $1.4 million from her Cupid creation, making her highest paid and wealthiest cartoonist of her lifetime. Her invented character Cupid is one of the first mass marketed toys in the United States before Mickey Mouse. Ta-da! I was so excited to find out Rose O'Neal, and she's a great person. And Lauren actually told me about her other life that I'm excited to find out more about, right? But there's always the side effect, right? But I bought her book online. I'm still slowly reading it. But where the Cupid doll come from, I was referencing in my work, I was very excited. Not just because the Cupid doll head shape looks like the peaches, that was the first reason, but I've been reading a lot about her life stories and things like that. It's just oh my God, everybody knows Mickey Mouse, but not so much about her. And Cupid doll also become very popular internationally. It go back to China, Japan, elsewhere, and then it become punk culture as well. Oops, sorry, I'm doing that again. To go to the next one. Okay, I'm back. So this is detail of one of my painting. And a 3D sculpture, so you can see peaches and Cupid dolls and all the painted elements on the surface of ceramic. Who's this lady? Princess Leia, right? My husband Andy always says, if you don't understand Star Wars or watch the whole thing, you're not true American. I guess I'm not. I fall asleep all the time. But I have my version of Leia. And do you know who this is? It's Korean drag queen Kimchi. And interesting, I moved to Florida now. Spend there. It's ridiculous, but it kind of gives me more reason to do so, right? So I make kimchi, my version of kimchi. And that was 2019, and then this is recent one. And that's kimchi, but somebody says, is this Dolly Parton? I was like, no. I guess I have to draw better. But that's my kimchi. But this surface decoration, they say, the ceramic world, for me is drawing. And the outside, when I do not use any glaze, but just on the glaze, it's so crisp and really matte, very similar to my painting surface with acrylic. And the only part I glaze here is the ribbon, which I don't have a picture of on the other side. So if you see my ceramic in person, there's really wet, shiny area, there's a matte surfaces, there's a very interesting dynamic going on. It's because I'm a painter. Face jug, do you guys know face jugs? Yeah, it has a very complex, interesting story in America, especially in the South. So I made my own face jug, combining with emoji, and I throw and then poke a hole, make a mouse, and then people are like, "Are you gonna put candle inside?" Like, no. Is it okay? The ceramic doesn't have a function. So it's a really whole other conversation, but I think it's really interesting. I was going to ceramic community studio for a while until I built my own studio at home, and it was just like almost like a social study, like how I get to know people. Like, there are potter who are very, very strict and trying to make the symmetry and throw really well and perfection. And there's a like ceramicists who are making more things and then putting things. And then I hear the conversation they're having over me. And oh, she's just a decorative potter. And I was like, oh wow, interesting. Because functional and decorative, there's a definition they were using it, and very, very interesting, right? So in the fine art world, in painting area, there is a painting, there is a fine art, and there is a commercial art, right? So why do people do this? Like, they like to put the name on it. They like to categorize things. And I am so lucky I'm an artist, so I can mix things up, make them confused, right? Because I feel really mischievous and I feel powerful doing so. So this American illustrator artist, Norman Rockwell, Rosie the Riveter, you know about the story probably more than I do. It's a character symbolizes American feminism. And Rosie is famous cultural icon to represent strong work, a woman during World War II. And I actually read a story about Norman Rockwell used a very slim, skinny ballerina, and he exaggerated the arm to make the strong physicality of a womanhood. And I was really inspired by that story. And like, hell yeah, like I have very strong, thick arm. I'm not gonna feel shame because I've been using my arm my entire life. Of course they're thicker. And I made this piece, and it's upstairs and fourth floor or third floor. Second floor, sorry, second floor. So this, I combine American sailors' tattoo design elements as a surface decoration. It's all underglaze, and certainly pick the area. I only want to use high fire glazes, but I play with a lot of like the strong women in my piece. So now I'm entering my ladies' work. Yellow Wave, Stranger Yellow, Storyteller Yellow. I utilize a lot of yellow in my work. And again, the shape you recognize, like fortune cookies and, what do you call this? Like confetti emojis and, things like that. But on the surface, like it's just really only underglaze and went through high fire. So surface is very painterly. And here you see the banana still very like a fresh peel. You'll see it's gonna get rotten later on. So I started using banana peel a lot in my work as a representation of second or third generation of Asian American. Inside white, outside yellow. And then they often don't speak their parents' language, and they're struggling often in the society. And I learned that when I was working at a high school, after-school program, lots of talented Korean high school students, they're prepping portfolio to go to college. And they were having a conversation, Miss Moon, are you a fob or a banana? It's like, what does that mean? So fresh off the boat or a banana, right? I'm neither, I'm just Korean right now. But it was just kind of interesting to know what they think, because juvenile, they're young. Now I have one. They want to identify themselves. They want to feel like they're belonging somewhere. And often they're kind of isolated. They feel like they want to be part of some group. So even within, they're trying to figure out, are you fob or banana? So that's when I learned. And it's how interesting notion. And when I was using more of banana peel in my studio, I eat and I use and then put it as a prop and look at and build something. And then I start seeing they're getting rotten, brown spots, and getting like gross, and then like fruit flies comes all the time. And I was thinking about it. It's beautiful. Like, you know, if you do not leave a mess in this world and disappear beautifully, how much contribution you do for the society. That's a beautiful thing. Like, we were so wrong about anti-aging. I mean, I'm sure, like, you know, as a woman, you always see all these commercials, like getting old as if it's cursing, like, you know, it's bad thing. So we all get so used to it, and we just like feel worrisome. Then everybody gets old. It's inevitable, right? In some way. And in some way, I'm kind of telling myself, it's okay. I turned 51 this year, and I'm like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be great, you know? And if I become a banana peel, beautifully contribute to the society, turning into dirt, that's a blessing. You know, let's not be plastic, right? So banana peel adding another meaning to my work, like, you know, about womanhood and aging, and like, you know, it's tradition, right? Like, you know, we always looking for something new, what's upcoming, you know, and we should honor tradition. We should honor something getting old and beautiful, and we have both all the time. So banana peel is, for that reason, it's becoming richer in my work, and I explore a lot. And I love using crystal glazes in my banana peel. So they're not really trompe-l'oeil. From a distance, you kind of feel like, oh, they look like real banana peel. But actually, when you get up closer, they're like crystal glazes. So there's like fireworks. It's just exciting. It's really weird and beautiful, I hope. So I'm in the moment, I'm using these plates as like a canvas in a way. They're using a crystal glaze, almost like a paint. So I have this large painting that I started working in 2021, right after Atlanta spot shooting. I was still living in Atlanta, and 8 were killed and 6 of them were Asian descent. It was obviously Asian hate crime. It was really near my neighborhood. And I felt really bad because I always go out and tell people how awesome Atlanta is. And I just felt like I needed to do something about it. So I did not want to use so many colors. I minimized, and then I wanted to use color yellow. It's like most important, loud, beautiful, sunshine-like color. So I made it this painting. Probably tried to make myself feel better in the beginning, but I think about what painting can impact, like, you know, when it goes out of my studio. So adopting blue and white, blue willow patterns, I look at it a lot because it's a funky, like Asian story designed by British people. And porcelain and blue and white is almost, for me, is very Western exotic like thing. Although other people will not agree, I think it's blue is very unnatural color for me. Like I said, my husband's eye color. So instead of white, and I switch with yellow. And then from a distance, you see only the like motion of it. But when you get closer, you see blue willow patterns and very detailed area. And then in the gallery setting, we'll build the table really, really high. So bring the almost like very close to your eye view. So you can see all these sculpture, almost very similar level. So like the Norigi idea, when they are standing together, all types of different people standing together, was kind of like my dream come true, doing that way. So this was my last solo show in New York, and I'm about to have one next month. And then I moved to Tallahassee, and that's from my studio. And then I kind of switched a landscape to still life format. So where the murals kind of coming from, this painting is became a point of departure. So I have done a lot of landscape in a way that I want to move on to the still life format. So you have a base, and then you have the mythical creatures here and there, and the yellow waves become very like mysterious, like almost genie, like dust, like. And then I did have a solo show in LA, and that's how we displayed. Okay, now I'm entering the museum piece, one another, and the title we collaborate, me and Diana, the curator. So I wanted to actually play with the notion of we, like you and I, but me versus you, right? It's almost like we are kind of facing each other instead of together. So when I was thinking of wordplay, like each other is like one way to say it, but then came up with one another. And then Diana suggested this way, and I thought it was really interesting. So one another, and that was the title. So this exhibition actually has several different components, all the ceramic masks that I made it in my studio about last 10 years. So they are studio production. And then a lot of them, like most drawings, like, you know, happen on site. But I did plan and have some idea in the beginning. I would say about 20 to 30%, but I didn't have everything figured out. It's just not the way I work. All right, so that was the first day my son standing in front of the large canvas, which is pretty scary, white canvas, right? So that was my sketch. Very, very brief, but kind of see the idea, right? I try not to do more than too much of a sketch because I don't want that to dictate what I do. And I know each process will take me to a different journey, and there will be tons of hurdle, and I want to face it and deal with that at the same time. And for me, it's better not to have a concrete plan than I don't try to replicate that plan that I made, which I'm not sure it's good one. So actually, if you don't have a high standard of like outcome, you're actually better off. That's how I see it. So I had this much plan and ton of anxiety before I came, but we started, and there are some challenges, like, you know, like I said, I had to deal with, you know, 3 different groups. And also, as you know, I'm introvert and I'm very shy. And I know my working speed, but I don't know other people's working speed. I also want to be a good team leader. I'm not a leader type, and I am a trained leader type, because in my classroom, I'm totally a boss, but because I have to be that way, right? But I also want to collaborate with people. I want to take idea instead of being a dictator. I want to be a good collaborator. So what they're good at, what I can do, and we look for the best possible way. So far, it was working great. Museum says it's 2 weeks, but I counted it was 10 days that I worked. Very, very short, and there's a lot of drawing, and I have to forgive myself a lot. When I especially draw the pots, the vessel forms, I have to measure with the tapes and then go with it, and things are not entirely symmetrical. I have to forgive myself. I'm sorry, but I think it's good enough. So I have to move on. Things that I have to do, and then I have to know where the mask's gonna go. They'll either become some kind of like a spirit, or flowers, or creatures, like on the like a high level, medium level, and the lower level. So we have to position that first, and then heavy duty doodling, like drawing. With the line quality, I have to express a lot. More like a design, more like Asian calligraphy, more of caricature, or like the navigation among all these different, you know, quality of line can do is a lot. And I get excited about it. So the monochromatic of color blue and white come from that, and I start embedding local colors where the student can help. And then we were working on the sky. There's a Korean mulberry paper where I use my material for my painting most of the time, Hanji paper. I colored them on the floor, and then they were not drying fast enough, and Andy and Ollie brought the hairdryer from the hotel, and they were drying it really fast. And then museum staff helped me use the wheat paste. That was a teamwork of all of us brainstorming together, so it will be easier to remove after 2 years. And then, of course, more doodle. And the part that I can control myself and easy. And then I have to send everybody home, and then I can do what I am good at. So that was kind of juggle between the group of effort and me working. But somehow we managed it. And then we had a really great time. And also museum had a narrow window of working time. And I've done it before with the fabric workshop and museum. So 6 o'clock they close, and then no one can work. And I was devastated at that time. But once I did it, and I knew how the museum works, there's no way I can sneak in at 2 o'clock in the morning and work. So knowing that it's okay, you go home and rest, and then come back next day, and then fresh start. It was great. And there's Sean and Isabel and Hannah, 2 students from FSU helped me. And it was tremendous opportunity for me to work together. And then we sort of chat a lot as well and learn about their life and stories and how they think of artists these days. It was just like eye-opening experience. It was great. I mean, I cannot ask more. And to be honest, it was my dream come true. I thought about it, like when I become a teacher, if I have any big project coming, I'm gonna bring my students, and they can learn, and they can have that experience. And I'm, of course, gonna pay them too. So I was really glad I was able to do that, and thank you so much for a student who, Sean, I don't know if he's here, Sean and the other student, undergrad student, came and helped. And their names also embedded in a Korean writing style. But it's all alphabet, you can read their names. So I'm so glad they helped me out and then make my dream come true. I hope I'm doing okay time-wise. So that's this is a picture from museum. Thank you for the nice picture. And I'm very glad. Today I came back and I was looking at it. It looked better than I left. Nothing has changed, right? And I was so concerned when I'm leaving. It's like, this is it, Jiha. You cannot fiddle with it anymore. Don't fuss with it. This is what it is. It's good. And then I was like, not sure. But then when I come back today and look at it again, okay, good. Good. Yeah, it has its life. And I have, I don't know how to play this. Should I just, Kim, can you help me play this? So there's a time lapse, 1 minute. We need some music, right? I think I overtime a little bit, I'm sorry, but this is it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jiha. We have time for questions. So I'm happy to kick it off, or if anybody has a burning question that you need answered, let us know. Yes, Sean. Yeah, Sean, do you want to come on up here too? I got a mic for you. So while Sean comes up, I have a question for Jiha. Kind of earlier today, we were talking about the importance of critiques within a classroom, and the importance of community came up in your talk. How do you kind of cultivate that and continue that in your work as you're kind of moving on and as you're working alone in your studio?
With this project, right? I guess I try to trust them their best, and every moment is like a learning moment, and also try not to be a dictator. That was my thing, because I can sense it because I have a teenager son. He hates my direction. Even when it was harmless thing, and he just like become very rebellious in some ways. So instead of ordering, suggesting, right? And then asking their opinion and then listening to them. And often I find out I'm not very good at it, but I try to negotiate the moment, like how it's leading, right? So like listening to them. In a way, I always say that we are in this together as an artist. Our group is very small. Like, look at the world around us, like sports, like bankers, like, ton of successful financially people out there. And our community relatively are very small. So if you know that, student and I are a team, there's no hierarchy, but we're just like the team member. And we have to survive first. That's very, very important. Because I see this all the time. Enrollments going down, there's less student, like art is kind of diminishing and oppressed, and where the world is a mess outside. That's what's happening. So I want to prevent that, We see that and then we honor it. We are the same kind. We have to take care of each other. So I think that that was the first thing going in my mind. And also, I know the assistants, like, Jeanne, like, they can be my son's teacher someday. I want them to get along, right? I want to communicate them well, so I know that they can communicate better. So it's like a full circle. So I think that, in that way, I understand that my viewers, like, also come from all different background and different generation. I do not want to have a specific, only one type of group like appreciate my work. So like sound very ambitious, but for me it's a very genuine hope. I want my work to speak with everybody, right? I want to include everybody. Am I too greedy? But like, including all the fetus, like in the future, like, I want them to look at my work, and then my work's gonna survive longer than I survive. Like, I have about less than 100 years, right? So if I think about it that way, you have to be generous and you have to also learn from them. So I think that kind of helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really produce this lovely, like, inviting atmosphere for us to not only get to work with you on this work of art, but also sharing your experiences of being in different communities. And what I feel like what was so important for me, being like an Asian Canadian in the diaspora, seeing somebody that looks like me, being able to access an art space and create work of art with all these different people, it really. I really enjoyed our conversation. Like already on day one, we already had a conversation about like the importance of advocating for yourself, marketing yourself, but also like finding like a special purpose for you to go back to the studio, like this special like creative problem that you want to solve. And like, it was just like that. Every day it was like, we had like really deep conversations, but also really lighthearted and sweet, like talking about miso,
my dog.
Your dog, yeah. Like every morning. And yeah, no, it was such a big privilege to be able to work with you. And
Thank you.
It's like, what was really humbling was when you talked to us about how you had, like, you started out as a painful introvert, and how you worked through, like, advocating for your art is not just for you, it's also for your community.
Thank you. Getting tired, guys? Maybe one more question, we can wrap this up.
Just since you brought up that question about audiences and wanting to make things for everybody, which I totally get, but as I know from writing communities and things too, like screenwriting, for example, you don't write it to just be read, you write it to be seen. So you're thinking of an audience in your head. So when you create art, are you thinking of an audience in your head? Did that make sense?
What a great question. It's a very big question too. I guess they're in and out. Like I definitely want to think about the communication, but I have to kick them out because I need to do my thing, right? If Ron's comment about my work resonate all the time, then I cannot move on, right? Professor who I met in my time here, and so it's in and out. But like a lot of critique that I have, like important critiques I have in University of Iowa as an MFA student, I still have them in my head. How can you kick them out, right? It become part of my identity. So I honor it, but sometimes you have to do your thing, right? And then I have to kick them out. Like invite them and kick them out. Invite them, kick them out. But yeah, but I cannot, at the end of the day, I cannot make work to please other people. I have to please myself. Although that can be wrong, and I don't trust myself. So art is full of conflict. It sucks. But it gives us a lot of joyful moment as well. Because of that, I stay, right? But I definitely have that push and pull relationship with the audiences I think about.
It's great to see the work.
Thank you.
I have a fondness for paintings and that tell you how to read them. We have a painting by Matisse in the collection where two women are sitting reading a book. And he's, I think, telling you, you read a painting like a book. There's another Matisse in St. Louis where a big painting where several figures are delighted to see a tortoise walking in from the bottom of the painting. Enter a painting slowly and wander through. And it was interesting for me to see your banana peels. Slip on one, and suddenly you're in the world of some kind of strange terrarium, and with all lit in very unnatural ways. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Matisse is one of my favorite artists. We had an argument, like at Fox Ed, the painters, like Matisse versus Picasso. Who loves Picasso, who loves Matisse? And I was Matisse team. Yeah, like interesting.
All right, well, we have lots of food left. The bar is still open, and we have Gia and Sean here, so please come up, introduce yourselves, and keep the conversation going. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.